What's good, everybody? Welcome into the latest episode of Behind the Turnbuckle. And look who we got in the center square this week. One of our oldest friends. We lived in the same area in Stamford and Greenwich. He was part of the Mean Street Posse. Pete Gass, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
I'm great, guys. How are you? It's a pleasure seeing you guys, especially after all this time. It's just a pleasure to be here.
This is why we started the show. I called Tommy about 6 months ago, said, Tommy, we got to create a scenario where we can bring all of our old friends back, some new wrestlers, some new talent, behind the scenes people. Everybody deserves to tell their stories, and that's what we're all about. But before we get into the stories, I got to ask you this. Do you miss the wrestling business at all?
I do miss it. I do miss it. I remember when I first got released, it was like a blow to me. It was like a shock to my system. I loved it so much. And I mean, heck, if they called me today, I probably couldn't perform, but I'd try. You know,
You try, wouldn't you?
I'd give it my best shot.
I just saw
It
the
is.
other day, what was his name? Armando. Oh my gosh, what was his name? Armando. He was a manager, wore the white hats and stuff.
He was
Anyway, he signed a.
Omaga's. He was Omaga's manager.
That's right. That's right. He
Yeah.
signed a 5-year Legends deal, and he's going to do some merchandise. It seems like, Pete, those are becoming more and more prevalent with action figures and video games and stuff like that. So if they called you for one of those, you'd sign on the dotted
Oh,
line.
In a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. Back when Rodney and I first started, not everybody had action figures. Not everybody had T-shirts and stuff like that, and we weren't allowed to have them because I guess Vince's feeling was the boys in the locker room already felt we were privileged, and we got a lot of things handed to us, and he didn't want to make it any worse for us than we already had, and then so they never did anything. We were in a couple of video games after a while, but other than that, we didn't have any other type of opportunities to do it. So I know that people keep asking me about the action figures, and I think it'd be pretty cool if they did action figures of the characters that weren't around and did like I don't know, something kind of rare just to have, but it's not my call.
so Gasser, is that the fact because you were associated with Shane and Vince thought, "Wow, these guys are privileged," and the boys would really get pissed off at that? Was that the main reason? Was that Vince's main reason of doing that?
That's what I was told. I was told by Chris Gilman and Joey Giorno. They had done a bunch of T-shirts for us, doing stuff for us, and they had created a shirt because back then, remember the Blair Witch Project was a movie.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
they had a T-shirt for that, and they made a T-shirt very similar, and it was called the Greenwich Project. And they had like a whole thing going on, and Vince shot every idea, and he said, "Guys, we are not doing anything for the Mean Street Posse." That's what I was told. So
It's such
here's what
a
it is.
weird thing because we talk about Vince all the time here on the show, just because obviously he was a big part of everything. And Pete, when you think about you guys and how they brought you in, you came in literally. You and I came in almost the exact same time.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
how hard was it because of everything you just said? And Vince going, "Oh, we're not going to do anything for them," but also you're trying to break into the business when Rock was big, Stone Cold Steve Austin main event, Triple H, Undertaker, Shawn Michaels. The list goes on and on. Did that make it even more difficult for you guys because of all the stars?
I didn't look at it as like we never felt we were at that level anyway. But it was just more about us. We were like deers in the headlights. Like we got there and we didn't know what to expect. We didn't know if we were going to be there the next day or whatever. And we just the only thing we were doing, like when we originally got asked to do it, we were asked to do it by Shane as a favor, and
Okay.
that was for the whole thing leading up into WrestleMania. So we went, we did the whole thing with the vignettes and with Chris Chambers over at the studio on a Sunday, and every week they started playing all these vignettes each week leading into WrestleMania. Then the week before WrestleMania was when Austin did the beer truck in Albany, New York, and Shane challenged X-Pac to a street fight. So I'm getting to your answer. Basically, we had no idea what was going on. Shane always kayfabed us anyway. Hammer, you could attest to that, right? I mean, he kayfabes everybody. So
Yeah.
it was one of those things where we got there. We never knew what to expect. We felt like we were there day by day, and we ended up getting contracts, And at first we were a novelty, and then we had the loser leave town match with Briscoe and Patterson, and it became the highest rated segment in cable history. And Vince is no dummy. He brought us back because he said there was something there for us. And then once we came back, now we weren't a novelty to the boys. We were taking time away from some of the talent that broke their ass. So now we were looked at differently. So now we had heat. So now with all that heat that we had, that would have just added more to it. So we just kept going and just kind of, to answer your question, we didn't know how long we were going to be there, to be honest with you. So we just kept breaking our ass and doing everything we possibly could day by day until we finally did get those contracts.
So this is really interesting because you guys were in such a unique position that you said, by the way, for people who are watching, Chris Chambers, one of the most creative minds in the history of the business. He worked for Major League Baseball and the WWE his entire career. So when they came to you and you said these things are a hit, all of a sudden Briscoe and you guys have high ratings and you got the heat, explain to the people at home, because I don't think people outside the business can understand when you've got heat with the boys, what that feels like throughout the day when you're just trying to do your thing, but all of the boys that have paid their dues are just staring at you saying, why are they getting TV time?
Right. I mean, there was comments even in a couple of the shows. Mick Foley, I guess we had a meeting that it was a work where we were all talking and said something about, and Nick said something about, why are the Mean Street Posse on a show 4 or 5 times? We were in different vignettes and stuff. And that was a shoot. He shot on us for that. And it was the feeling of amongst a lot of the guys, so it now became a thing where the guys were trying to break us. I found out after I wrote a book about my whole experience. And I did a book signing, and after the book signing, it was a thing where all the guys, there were different wrestlers there. So I just brought my books, and I packed up. I was going to leave, and Bob Holly grabs me by the arm. He goes, "Hey, I want to talk to you for a second." So I went up. I said, "Yeah, what's up, Bob?" And he goes, "I got to tell you something. You are one tough son of a bitch." He says, "I don't know if you know this." He goes, "But we used to talk about you guys in the locker room, and we used to try to see who can break you guys." He said, "I'd be in the ring with you." And he goes, "I'd have you on the ground." And he goes, "I'm punching you in the face." And I look down and you're laughing. You're smiling. And he says, "I just want you to know you have my respect." So for me, that's what the business is about. It's about respect, right? And I told him, I laughed and I just said, "Bob, I'm not going to tell you that any of that stuff didn't hurt." I said, "But I grew up with 2 older brothers that used to beat the shit out of me. And I learned very quickly, if you go back and tell mom and dad, those beatings get worse." Mm-hmm. So I just, like Bradshaw hit me with a chair on Monday Night Raw, and he bent that thing around my head. And we went backstage, and he told me months later, he goes, "I was expecting you to whine, bitch, moan, throw a punch at him or whatever." And I just went and I stuck my hand out and I said, "Thank you." Because as you guys know, at the end of a match, you go backstage and you say thank you because 100%. You're putting each other's lives in each other's hands. And by saying thank you means that you took good care of me. And that was basically like an indirect way of sticking it to you, saying you didn't get me.
Yep. And Bob Holly was one of the stiffest workers ever. I remember him, man. And for him to give you that respect, and JBL, another one. I mean, JBL was one of the leaders of the locker room. I mean, he drove Miz nuts back in the day, right? He made him sleep in a bathroom and stuff, change in the bathroom. Was there ever a point in time where you got the respect? You guys got the respect?
I think we did over time. As things went on, I felt like we were getting it. Though, I mean, we spent 3 years there. I mean, so the first year was kind of like the first half of that first year was kind of a novelty thing. And then after that, we started trying to work and learn. And then they sent us to Memphis and we were starting to hone our craft. And, by the time I actually got released, I could actually work. I mean, I know that Coach did a commentary in Memphis when they had I was heavyweight champ for Power Pro Wrestling. I know you don't remember that. That was during the old XFL days, and you had a cheerleader on your mind. But I don't know if you remember all that stuff.
On a lot of things. Anyway, But continue the story. Sorry.
That's really it. I mean, that was just, so one of those things where, eventually the guys, we did earn the respect and over time. And, it was one of those things where it got to the point where by the time we got released is when we were ready to finally have the ability to do something. And it was too late because Vince had purchased WCW. He had his roster, he had Turner's roster, and he just had more guys at only like 6 hours of airtime for the week. So, what are you going to do? You got to trim the fat. And we were a part of a storyline. I was in Puerto Rico at the time because they had split up the Mean Street Posse. Rodney and Joey Abs were in Memphis, and I was in Puerto Rico. And I was there with D'Lo and Chaz, who's Mosh from the Headbangers. The three of us were together there in Puerto Rico, and they were teaching. I was learning under Savio Vega. I was learning a whole new style. So I was like reinventing my character and everything else. And then I get a call one day from Joey Abs and Rodney, and they were in Memphis. And Abs says to me, he goes, I need someone to make me happy. He goes, you always cheered me up. I said, what's the matter? He goes, I just got cut. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. He said, they're bringing guys in one by one. They're getting rid of Memphis. You're either going to Louisville or you're going home. So guys like Daniel Bryan and Lance Cade and those guys all went to Louisville. And Rodney and Abs, they went home, and a bunch of other people went home. And so now I'm in the car. We're going to a show in Puerto Rico, and I'm sitting in the back seat, and D'Lo says, what's wrong to me? And I said, I just got a bad feeling. And D'Lo's like, Pete, you're not a part of the Mean Street Posse anymore. You're Pete Gas, and you're here with Puerto Rico. You're not in Memphis. I said, well, I hope you're right. Next day, I get like $100 worth of groceries like an idiot. I'm walking back, and Bob Clark calls me, and I see it on my phone, and I'm like, fuck. And I said, hey, Bob, what's up? And he's like, is it a bad time? I was like, no, I'm just walking with groceries. He says, I'll call you back. I said, just give me the fucking news. And he said, well, we're going to go a different route. He says, we want you to go to Japan. We want you to go, Dr. Death's going to call you. And we're going to, would you go to Japan? I said, absolutely. I said, I love this business too much. I'm heavily invested in it, and I love it. And I don't want to quit. And there was really no place to go at that time because WCW was gone, obviously. And ECW wasn't really around, and there was nowhere else to go. So I was like, sure. I said, I'll go to Japan. And he goes, okay, he'll call you. And they never called. So that was the end of that. So, but other than that, that's pretty much the story.
They were in an impossible situation. I mean, I did the same thing you did in a different way because they asked me to become a heel, a character, after I'd already been there. So you were trying to learn how to work. And I think that was the biggest problem that you guys had because a lot of you just mentioned two legends, Lance Storm and, Daniel Bryan, and all these guys had years to go on the independents and then go to a training facility and then get called up. And so nobody really saw them until they were seasoned. And you guys did the reverse. You started on TV and then had to do that. And I think that it was always a losing battle for you. And to get the 3 years on TV, I had a lot of respect for you guys. And I never thought even one time that you guys didn't belong. And I mean that. I never thought that.
I appreciate that. No, I appreciate that. I mean, that means a lot. I get goosebumps when I hear stuff like that because Rodney and I would drive from city to city and we would talk about how can we do this better? What can we do? We threw our bodies around when we didn't know how to take a bump. When we first started against Briscoe and Patterson, we just threw our bodies around. We just wanted to put on the best show we can for the McMahons and try to keep this train rolling as long as it could. And that was, in a nutshell, that's all we did. It was just, we worked our asses off.
Yeah, so. and the hard part of it, right, Pete, is like you're on the road, you and Rodney, and the only time you probably really saw Shane is probably at TVs. Am I correct? I mean, Shane wasn't on the road with you guys, so you're really stuck out there to handle all the BS and, we're not respected and stuff like that. Meanwhile, Shane is here, and no offense to Shane at all. He had other business to do. But, you guys saw him at TV, and that was it. And I'm sure you never complained to Shane about anything.
No, we wouldn't. No. Like when we first got there, we were a novelty. Shane did ride with us, and we had a blast, man. It was like it was like being in high school all over again. You know, like doing stupid shit on the road and messing with each other, and we had a blast doing it. And then once we got called back, that's when Shane was, you know, we were figuring Shane was going to ride with us, and he's like, no, he's like, Dad doesn't want me to, you know, I can't ride, you know, that's just showing favoritism, which is, you know, because Shane rode with the boys, Shane rode with Bubba, you know, Shane rode with a bunch of those guys, but he didn't want us riding with him, and so we just kind of had to do our own thing and stuff like that. So
I've said this many times that Shane is not the greatest wrestler, but if I was to put him in a countdown of top talent and top superstars, I would say he's a top 10 or 15 guy of all time because of the things he was willing to do and the big moments he lived up to. Take me back, for people who don't know, there's a lot of fans that watch us now that haven't watched for 20 years back when we were in our prime, so to speak, and they don't understand the relationship you had with Vince's son Shane goes back a long way, and that was very real. When did it all start for you?
Junior high, played football against them. I know, you know, there were 3 middle schools, and Rodney and Shane were in Central, and Billy Piro, who was a part of the original Mean Street Posse, he was in Western, on the western part, and then I was from Eastern, the eastern part of Greenwich, and we all played football against each other, all rivals and stuff. And then 10th grade came in, and we were all we all went and did you know, played together, and that's when we really all started to bond a lot. So it was fun.
Was that at Greenwich High School?
Yeah, Greenwich High. Yep. We played football together. I was a left tackle. Shane was a left. No, sorry, I was a right tackle. Shane was left guard, and Rodney was a fullback.
I'm trying to remember that. I remember seeing an old picture of Shane, and maybe you guys were in it. I maybe have the. Did he wear number? And I didn't even look this up. If I get this right, it's just by happenstance. Did he wear number 57?
No, 61.
Damn it! I knew. I remember the picture had those. Remember back in the day when the guys wore things around? Yeah.
Yep.
So did he? When you guys were growing up and in high school and stuff, obviously, that was at a time when Vince was not a billionaire and he was still building. And there's a lot of taking risks and taking gambles to build something. Did Shane always want to get in the ring and follow in his father's footsteps? And the reason I ask you that is that during my 10 plus years, he came and went several times. And in fact, came and went a couple of times with his office job too.
Yep. Yeah.
I never felt like he was super in love with the business, I guess is what I'm asking.
Right. I mean, Hammer, you could attest to this. I mean, he did everything. Vince, when Shane was not, when he wasn't in school, Shane had to work the ring crew. He taught Shane every facet. He had him working in the warehouse. He had him doing all sorts of stuff. He had him learning. He was grooming him to take over the business right? I mean, Hammer, you right?
Yep. Yeah, he worked a summer internship. Kevin brought him in as TV production. I know he started out on the ring crew. Then he put him in merchandising. Then he spent the whole summer at TV production. And he was a wealth. I mean, he wanted to learn everything. When we were with him, man, there were, why is that happening? What are we doing there? What's that edit right there? So, and he had a pad and he would write stuff down because he knew in his mind he had a potential of someday kind of running this company, which really never really happened. Right. But he was like Pete said, Vince started him from the bottom and tried to learn every aspect of the business. So Stephanie Stephanie was the same way also. A little different, but Stephanie definitely was the same. But Shane was he's one of a kind. I worked very close for Shane when he was running international and I was doing the production end of it. And I don't have a negative word to say about Shane. His enthusiasm, his creativity, the way he treated you. He called me Hammer. Like, how do you like?
That's where I got it from.
This is where Shane, right? Shane McMahon, Vince's son. Hey, Hammer, I want to do this with Raw. All right, so I got to check with Kevin now. And what's the license fee? But he's like Vince, because Vince would just come up with ideas and let's just roll with this. And that's how Shane was. What a great guy. But through the years, you guys must have had some great times, huh?
Oh, we had amazing time. I mean, just growing up, together. Like, yeah, we had fun. We used to do a whole bunch of things. We used to get in a little bit of trouble.
I bet.
We used to have casino night over at Shane's house. He would have a poker table. We were gambling on pool. We were gambling on. Hey, wait. Speaking of gambling, I got to bring something up because it's eaten me up inside now for 24 years.
What's that?
Let's talk about the race, Coach.
The
Let's
race
talk about
with the race
the
with who?
race.
With who? Well, don't look at me like that. With Chimel?
That was a work. Because there was gambling going on, and I lost because I put my money on you.
All right, hold on a second.
Let's all have.
I do not want this to take a left turn because this pisses me off. This pisses me off.
Oh, I lost $20.
I will pay you back. But I'm telling you right now, we had Chimel here on the show. He was one of our first guests, and I was very reluctant. But Tommy says, Coach, this is why we started the show. We got to hear from everybody. Johnny, Photo, right. Chimel. I said, whoa, no, Chimel. But let me just say this, because we argued about this for 20 minutes right here on the show. I can tell you on my kids, Pete Gas, on my kids, it was not a work. It was not fake.
No.
I thought in my head, and I'm sorry you lost $20. A lot of people lost $20 on me. I'll be honest. But it was a 3-camera shoot. It was a better storyline than most of the storylines today. It lasted 8 weeks. He lost 50 pounds. I said, Pete Gas, in my head, I said, I can run at 6:30. And for those people who haven't watched the interview with Chimel, it was a race. We bet. And then everybody bet, including Pete Gas. And I had to beat him by a minute. I won the race, but he won the bet. And that's been the argument for 20-some-odd years because he tells a story that he won the race. He did not win the race. I finished first. He won the bet. It was not a work. You don't believe me, do you?
Won the race. I would have won the bet.
No, we started at the same time. I had to beat him by a minute. That part's getting lost in all this. Tommy, I told you if you brought this up, I didn't want to do this interview. I told you that.
Yep. I'm sorry, but I didn't even know Gasser was going to go there with this. And where did you hear it was a work? Like some of the boys said that to you?
I lived it. I was on that field with a Penn State sweatshirt I had bought that day.
I want people to understand this, that literally I believe that was the first SmackDown of that season. Like we'd been working up to the SmackDown. And there was a track right next to the arena at Penn State. Yep. And so literally there were fans outside. We told the fans, tell me if I'm lying here, Pete, you can go watch it, but you have to stand on the outside of the track. Yep. And all the boys and the WWE personnel stood on the inside of the track. Pete, JBL, who has never let me live it down. I'm sure you talked to JBL about this because he would love to have his voice be heard. And
I did.
And what did JBL say? Did he say it was a work?
JBL said you got beat. That Chimel trained for it, and you didn't. It was a classic example of tortoise and the hare. You were the hare. You took it too light. And listen, don't kill the messenger. I got his number. I know you have his number too. We can call him.
We're going to have to get JBL on the show, Tommy, because I got to settle this once and for all. Because I'm telling you right now, if somebody else can get Michael Cole and The Rock to do commentary on an event, I'll stop talking. I'm the only one that's ever done this. And clearly I was the A side in this fight. I was the one. I was the pay-per-view. I was the main event. Chimel was my foil and somehow lost 50 pounds in the process.
Hammer, get involved in this. Come on.
And by the way, folks, we had a major network show to shoot. We shut it down for this race. The Rock and Michael Cole, Bubba Dean, Vince's personal camera guy, on a golf cart, shut the production down.
And let's not forget,
this friggin' race.
Shane was a big part of this. Do you guys remember we would have press conferences every week, and Tony Chimel would show up in a brand new tracksuit, brand new tennis shoes, and we're like, who's your benefactor? He's like, I can't say. I can't possibly say. Shane was buying him new outfits every week. His wife called me in tears, Pete Gas. I will take it to my grave. I did him a solid. I gave him an extra 10 years of life. That's what I did for Tony Chimel.
Yeah. And so tell everyone, what did you lose? What'd you have to do?
Well, it was one of the most embarrassing things in my career. So the payout was one push-up at a time whenever he told me to do one. Mm-hmm. And I had to say, as I did the push-up, I am Tony Chimel's bitch. And a few of the places that I had to do them was me and Triple H were on an appearance at the Pentagon in front of a bunch of Marines and military personnel. Triple H gets a phone call. Oh, hey, Coach, Tony Chimel's on the line. Get down and give me one. This was back in the day when you could actually talk on planes, and they let him on the loudspeaker. Could the person in 7A get out into the aisle and give me a push-up?
That's great.
All the regular people didn't know what was going on.
Right.
Pete, we were at Sergeant Slaughter's golf tournament at Doral in Miami, and I had to do one there. Now, Chimel says I still owe him one. I do not owe him one. I did all 100.
We were at a wedding. I remember that one. I don't know whose wedding that was. We were all at, and you.
It was mine. It was my wedding. What are you
right. It
about? It was my wedding.
I set him up, Pete. You see that?
You guys are just. Oh, I'm losing my mind. I am losing my mind today. Oh my God.
Great.
Pete.
Yep.
Hey, so speaking about talking on an airplane.
Yeah.
There was a time. Rodney and Shane went at it on an airplane.
For real?
They're heading home, and Vince. This is before Vince had his plane, and Vince is sitting up against the window in first class, Shane's sitting next to him, and Rodney's on the aisle in coach first row in coach next to me. I'm sitting on the window, and the next thing you know, we're both sleeping because we didn't get much sleep because Shane, Rodney, and I were drinking the night before. Next thing you know, Rodney gets hit in the face with a magazine and had that hard plastic, cover on the magazine. Yeah. He gets hit in the face. He wakes up and he goes, and he looks over and he sees Shane in first class, and Shane's going, he doesn't want him to, don't throw it back because you may hit Vince. So Vince is up, he doesn't sleep, so he's awake. He hears the whole thing, and he's laughing up front. And Rodney just says, fuck you, and he goes back to sleep. A couple minutes later, bam, right in the face again. So Rodney goes, yeah, I'll get that fucker. He goes to this flight attendant. He said, excuse me. He's like, can you please make an announcement? You got me thinking it's because of the announcements. Can you let everybody know that WWF superstar Shane McMahon is on the flight, and for all of his fans that would like autographs, he would gladly sign autographs. And the lady did it. And all you hear up in first class is Vince, right?
That's Vince.
So then all of a sudden Shane turns around, looks at us, and he goes, I'm getting even with both you guys. And I'm sitting there going, what the fuck did I do? So now, sure enough, that Monday, Mean Street Posse versus APA.
Oh, no.
And it started a streak of us just getting our heads beaten in by those guys for shit. Like 8 weeks. It felt like forever. And it was, and that's how he got even with us, that fucker. Yeah.
Talk about stiff working.
People don't realize
that was some price to pay. He started the whole thing. That little shit.
That's the business in a nutshell right there.
Yeah.
That is taking something ridiculous and taking it to the ring, or taking it, to actually something that matters where you can actually get hurt. I told the story, Pete, that I refused to go to Afghanistan when my wife, now ex-wife, was pregnant. She didn't want me to go. She was worried. I'd already been. And Vince got pissed. And the next week on TV, Earl Hebner comes up. Music's playing. Taker had just gone over. And he goes, go hit Taker in the back. And I'm like, why the hell would I ever do that? And I was like, oh, here we go. And he goes, hey, I'm just here. And, Vince is telling me for you to go hit Taker in the back. So, of course, I do it. Taker turns around and goes, hey, man, I'm sorry. I don't want to do this. Throws me into the ring. I take every finisher, tombstone pile driver. As I hit the mat, Batista's music hits. He comes down, and I take every one of his finishes simply because I did not go to Afghanistan in the middle of a war. And I'd already been there and wrestled Ric Flair in Afghanistan. Now, it's funny. You mentioned a plane. when Vince got his plane, Pete, you remember how they
Yep.
had the 4 bucket seats in the front?
I was never in it.
You never rode
That
on
was
his
after.
plane?
No,
Oh,
I was
wow.
never on it.
That's something that you didn't get to do with the McMahons.
No.
So we were
Nope.
flying. I used to do all the press conferences. So we would fly after the show, and we were going to Kansas City. And it was only me, Triple H, Vince, and somebody else. So I was in the back all by myself on a bench, and I see out of the corner of my eye, Triple H is trying. Remember back in the day, Triple H really wanted Vince's approval. He wanted Vince to think that he was the guy. I can run this. Not Shane. I could run this. And you look what happens today. Triple H is running it, right? So he eats a banana. And I just happen to like open my eye like this, right? And all of a sudden he takes the banana peel. I kid you not. And he throws it as hard as he can throw it from about 10 feet away. It whizzes past Vince's ear, and it's coming right for my face. It was a 1 in a million shot. Whoop! And I caught it. And all 5 of us go literally bananas. It was incredible. Right. Vince lost it. Triple H couldn't believe it. And I literally avoided having the banana peel right here so they could all go like we always would do. They love that shit, man. They love acting like
Vince loves practical jokes. Always has, always will, right?
Always.
Hey, you know, I just thought of something.
What's
that?
You
said about catching. I just thought about something.
What?
We all 3 of us played softball together.
That's
we
right.
Did. We did.
Right?
We could pound that ball. We could pound that ball. Right. I had forgotten you were the only talent other than me to ever play on our softball team because you lived in the area.
Yep.
And remember who coached third base? God, I love these stories so much. Remember who coached third base that got so into it all the time? Who was that, Pete?
Who was it?
Yes.
Howard.
One of the greatest voices of all time, Howard Finkel.
The Fink, baby. The Fink.
The Fink was amazing.
When we get to third base, like going first to third on a base hit, he would turn around and give you that little high five right there. Like, yeah, he's got
pulling his pants up.
Yeah.
The khaki pants and the little and the Tiparillo cigars and his hand telling you to take home plate, and he got his hands up to stop and he's saying go. I'm like, okay, can we make a decision here or what?
Oh my!
What a great guy, man!
Oh,
what a character!
He lived for those softball games, Pete.
Didn't he?
He lived for those games, man. God rest his soul. God rest his soul.
Man.
He was. Guy. Oh my God! I could literally tell these stories all freaking day. You mentioned Bob Holly, and I want to go back there for a reason. I want you to describe to the people how scary he was, and I'm going to tell a story about what I lived through with Bob Holly. Why was he? Why did it mean so much to you for him to give you that respect because of who he was?
Because he was intimidating. He was very forceful. He was very. He was a tough guy. I mean, he didn't take shit from anyone. I mean, I don't know if either of you or both of you remember this. Do you remember when Stasiak almost got killed in the locker room?
Yes.
Do you guys remember that?
Yes.
Yes. You remember, Hammer? You don't remember that?
No, I don't remember that.
So he was taping conversations on the road. I guess he was trying to make it a part of a gimmick.
Yeah.
And he was in the back seat of a car driven by Bob Holly and British Bulldog.
Whoa.
Yeah. I mean, he talk about just not a good career
not
move.
Smart.
Right? Not a good healthy move either. And I remember fearing his life. They took because Bradshaw got involved, and I mean they were taking his gear and taking scissors to it and cutting it up, and just he was crying. He was flat out tears, crying, begging for them to stop, and he thought he was going to get killed. He really thought he knew he had fucked up, and he said it. He said that he did it for research, or like he was trying to be a part of a gimmick, or it was supposed to. I don't know what I don't know.
Well, no, remember it was I'm Crazy-Act Stasiak. That was the thing. I'm Crazy-Act Stasiak, and we did pre-tapes with him where we would mess him up on purpose to create this character, Crazy-Act Stasiak, and he really bought into that.
Even before he made it up to the show, he he'd be working out at the gym at Titan Tower, and Rodney and I always worked out there. This is long before we got asked to be involved, and he'd be in the, we go in to take a piss or whatever, and he'd be in the locker room, and he'd be like looking at his abs, and he said, "Oh, I shouldn't have had that slice of pizza." Like, really, bro?
Yeah.
Seriously, stop. Washboard abs, like you real. Oh yeah, that one slice of fucking pizza. Oh man, like, come on, man.
You're bringing up so many stories. So many stories. We were in Sacramento one time. You remember when Stone Cold had Stone Cold Appreciation Night? You guys remember this, right? So they came to me and said, "Coach, bring Stasiak into the pre-tapes room and do whatever you can to mess him up as many times as you possibly can." And so we brought him in, serious as a heart attack. We go, "Hey, we need you to tell Stone Cold how much you appreciate his leadership and what he's done for the company." "Okay, you guys are going to put me in the video?" "Yeah, we're going to put you in the video." "Yeah, we got you." He's like, "I can't believe you guys are using me in a Stone Cold video. Come on now." So literally, you guys remember the Professor? Like all these guys, like banging, like ladders are dropping outside, brawlers throwing things against the wall. After 28 takes, I kid you not, remember Prof, our engineer in the room? He goes, "Take 28," he like does that. And we do all this to put it in the video. So he gets done. He's like, "God, I can't believe you guys messed me up. Was the last one good?" We're like, "Man, it was fantastic." So we're sitting in there when Raw starts and they play the video, and they played it with all the mess ups in it. I literally, you remember the building in Sacramento? You can see all the way down to Carilla. I stick my head out. Stasiak is running directly toward me. He wants to fight me. Like, he wants to seriously fight me. He is so pissed. And I go, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa." I said, "Think about how over you just got. Did you hear the crowd?" He stops for a second, looks around. He's like, "Yeah, you might be right. Do you think I'm over?" I go, "I think you're over." And literally, I flipped him like that.
It's so easy, right?
So easy. So easy. Man. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he wasn't the brightest. He wasn't the brightest guy in the toolbox, man. He had some issues, but we never did pre-tapes with him or Ken Shamrock. Oh my God. We got We'll move on from there.
So I want you guys to think about this. Do you remember when there was Tough Enough, and Bob Hawley was a trainer on Tough Enough 2 or 3, right? So I don't know if you guys know this, but Bob Hawley, because of his training and what he put in his body, he would get up every 2 hours to eat, like regimented, right? Right?
Fact.
Right. So and
he wouldn't eat protein powder. He had like real chicken, like chicken breast, turkey burgers.
That's right. That's right.
He had real protein. He wouldn't eat protein. He wouldn't have protein powder.
100%.
He had the legit. Yeah.
That is true. 100% true. So we're at a bar in Stanford. Shocking, because that's where me and Pete hanged out a lot. But I was with Big on this particular night. Yeah. And I actually got an apartment downtown so I could stumble home every night. That was the entire reason for having that apartment. So Big calls somebody on the phone, and he goes, "Hey, somebody wants to talk to you." And I'll never forget this. It was at 1:17 a.m. And the reason I remember that time is because it was not on the 2 hours. And I pick it up. I go, "Hello?" He goes, "Who the F is this?" And I go, "It's the coach." "Who the F is this?" I think we're messing around. He goes, "It's Bob Hawley, mother." And he says, "And you just woke me up not on my 2 hours. So guess what's going to happen to you?" I don't know. "The next time I see you, I am going to kill you." Yeah. What? Now, all of a sudden, my buzz at 1:17 a.m., woo!
Yeah.
But he was hurt at the time. He wasn't on the road. So I was like, I'm straight. I'm good. Until I wasn't. About 3 months later, I'm sitting up in the stands like I always did, working on my notes, and all of a sudden, my lights go out. He snuck up all the way into the concourse, comes down behind me, yanks me in a sleeper, yanks me from like 5 seats in out into the aisle, and then he's got down, and his mouth is right here. I can like feel his breath, and he's got me. I can't breathe. He's like, he's in a sleeper. He goes, I told you that I would kill you the next time I saw you. Are you ready to die? Are you ready to die?" I'm like, I couldn't even answer him. And he held it like for like 30 seconds. I literally thought I was going to die. That was Bob Hawley in a nutshell.
Yeah.
But he actually liked me. He actually liked me.
Thank God he liked you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
Didn't he?
Speaking of those bars in Stanford, it was during that whole time with the acolytes, and it was after JBL hit me with a chair. You're on the road so much, you don't get to see your girlfriend. So I'm in bed with my girlfriend one night, sleeping, and it had to be about. That was over. It only took a couple minutes. So we'll save that for another day. So then I'm in bed with my girlfriend. All of a sudden, the phone rings, and I'm like, "Who the fuck's calling me at like 1:45?" And all of a sudden, I answer the phone. He didn't have my number. Someone at Brick House gave him my number. So all of a sudden, I hear JBL say, "You son of a bitch, get up!" And I'm like, "This is like a dream. Like, how much more of this can I take?" And I'm like, "John," and he goes, "Get down here right now." He goes, "Come have a beer with me." I said, "John, I'm in bed with my girlfriend. I mean, come on, bro." And he's just like, "Get down here now." And I'm just like, fuck. I didn't go, but I was just like, fuck. Like, it would have been fun to have beers with him since he didn't beat the show. Hopefully, I probably had a buy, but whatever. It is what it is. But it never happened. But just the whole thing about being in a dead sleep and all of a sudden your phone rings and it's JBL telling you to get the hell out of bed.
Yeah, but a lot of talent did that, Tommy and Pete, when they were in town to shoot some at the TV studios. Then they stayed at a hotel and they always wanted to go out, and that was home for us.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
It was fun.
Yeah,
it was definitely a good time.
It was so much fun. So much fun. What do you see now, Pete, as it's been a few years and you've moved on to doing other things? When you watch the product from afar, because me and Tommy obviously talking about it every week, and we have our thoughts on it. What do you see that's different now as opposed to when you were in that, what I consider the best time ever in the business?
Yeah. I mean, without a doubt, I mean, the storylines I don't think could ever match what we did, or not me, our era. But as far as like talent wise, I mean, I start right with the women. Like, I mean, the women, no disrespect to the women back then. But the women now are amazing. They're just, I mean, they're so good. They're some of them are better than some of the guys, and they put on a great show. They speak well. They do everything. I mean, the product itself is completely much more athletic. The stuff that we did was much more violent, without a doubt. And but I mean, overall, I think they do a good product. I don't know now. You guys may know more about it. I liked the whole, when you had to speak back then, you were given topics and you put it in your own words, right?
Thank you. Thank you.
And it was just, it came off more realistic.
Yep.
Because you were putting things in the way you would phrase it, right? As long as you touched on the points, that's all that mattered.
Yeah.
But then when you got to, I remember going back to the 15-year anniversary of Raw, and that's a whole other topic with Shane. Shane doesn't give you any buzz. He just tells you like 6 days before. He's like, "Hey," he's like, "You want to work?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah, we're going to do a battle royal. Fink's going to call you. He'll set it up." I'm like, "All right." And then you get there beforehand. You're going over like what's going to happen in the match, and you see people practicing their lines, practicing their walk down the ramp, to the ring. And I'm like, man, times have changed. And we had to go out and we had to walk it down and practice our walk so they knew what to film. And I was like, wow, times have changed quite a bit, so. But it was the product itself, I think, it's better for certain things, but not for others. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it does. It makes complete sense. Complete sense.
It's all about the storyline, like you said. They don't even have a match for Cody at Bad Blood. They're teaming him up with Roman Reigns, what I think is ridiculous. Why would the champion be with Roman Reigns? Because he has issue with the bloodline. Me and Coach talk about this all the time. They made Gunther the champ, and he's the most boring guy in the world. When you got guys like LA Knight, that could be the champ, Damian Priest. You got Drew McIntyre, who's probably top 5 heel in the company right now. Yeah. And he's going in Hell in a Cell with CM Punk. I mean, this storyline's been going on for like 4 months now, but you thought it was dead and over with at Bash in Berlin. And they just because there's lazy writing, Pete. Like you said, you nailed it as soon as Coach asked you. There's no storylines anymore.
No.
And that's what we lived off of, right?
Right. It
You
always
know,
went from one storyline and it always flowed into the next one. Right. And it always seemed to, like, it wasn't just like, okay, it was done. Like, certain things would happen in a storyline, and the next thing you know, it would spin off into something else to bring another angle in. But like, to go back with Gunther though, I kind of agree with Gunther having to have the strap, because if he didn't have the strap, would anyone care?
Thank you, Tommy. What did I tell you?
that's
But I
what
mean,
he's saying.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Yeah.
if he doesn't have the strap, is he relevant?
No, the answer is no. The answer
Right.
is no.
One of the greatest storylines we ever was the Triple H Stephanie test thing of him getting married and Triple
Yeah.
H and the whole turn there. You know, Vince and friggin' Austin. Are you kidding me? You'll never see storylines like that ever again.
But
And
look
that's
how
the
the whole
problem.
thing with Triple H and Test, it started with Shane, and Test, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
Shane didn't want his little sister dating Test,
Right.
There you
and
go.
then it flowed in.
Real life. Yep.
That's how the storylines went.
Yep.
And we were phased out of it. We were fighting against Shane because Shane had split up from us, and honestly, like, right after the whole thing with how they split us up with Shane, that was the last affiliation we really had with Shane, other than him, coaxing us into, like, having a match, the three of us against Big Show, or something like, like, where he'd, like, talk us into something like, hey, you know what? Other than that, we were pretty much on our own after that whole thing with Shane.
But here's where I think that we have a problem, and you've already touched on it, that you were terrified for your phone to ring because we love it so much that we don't want it to end. And then when
you're
we
right.
get that call, and then you've got these idiot fans like, you only last 3 years, or you only lasted 8, or you only lasted 12, and it drives me insane because it's so hard to get to the level that we were at. I think talent now is so terrified of what else am I going to do, so I'll just go along with it. You want me to say this? Exactly this? Okay, I'm going to do it because I need the TV time, and I'm terrified of getting fired because I don't know where else to go, and that's a scary, scary thing, isn't it, Pete?
Right. Absolutely. Like, I remember getting hurt in a match, and being back when we first started, and Rodney and I at the time they didn't give us our own rooms. We had to split a room. And I remember getting out of bed, my leg was screwed up. I screwed it up in a match or something. I remember that morning waking up, you wake up the next morning, you're real stiff. I remember sneaking out of the room, putting on a pair of sneakers, shorts, and t-shirt, and literally, I think I walked about 4 or 5 miles just to try to loosen it up, because I was so worried that I wouldn't be able to do anything and I'd lose my job. And it was one, like, I always, you learn to have a high threshold of pain, and you guys know that from the business. You have a high threshold, and you just learn to just fight through everything and just go, and it's basically out of fear. I was just always afraid, like, you don't work, you're off a storyline. Next thing you know, you're going home, and I never wanted to be the reason for that.
Yeah, it happens so fast.
Right.
But lately, a lot of things that they're deciding in the business, I just don't agree with. And one of them is, you've got this parent company now, and for the first time, you don't have a person with the last name McMahon even involved in the company at all.
Weird.
And all of these decisions, I know Vince never would have made from a business perspective. I know Shane wouldn't have done it. Stephanie wouldn't have done it. Triple H is still there, and I feel like in a lot of ways he goes along with it. And I mean this, they're going to cut live events down, Pete, to around 200 a year. And you got 2 different tours from 300 to 200. And the COO of TKO said this, well, all of these shows are selling out so quickly, so clearly the tickets are severely underpriced. So we're going to raise the tickets because we sell out so quickly. What's your reaction when you hear something like that?
You're going to start to see that those, unless they're in certain towns, those smaller towns, those prices are just not going to fly. And you're all of a sudden going to see, instead of a packed house, you're going to see a half packed house. And then you're going to have to start putting people getting the TVs, and then you're going to have to put everybody in the shot for the angle. Like the old WCW days that they said they used to do that, right?
That's exactly right.
And stuff like that. It's gonna hurt the business. They'll learn. It's trial and error. Someone's going to have to get in that person's ear and eventually explain it to them, and they'll learn the hard way, and it's not going to help.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. Well, last question we always ask everybody, because we love having people on to kind of relive, and this has been in a year. We've got a lot more stories you and I could tell, and Tommy as well. So we're going to do this again.
Right.
But what are you doing now? Tell the audience how you're keeping busy, because you look great. You look healthy. What are you doing these days?
I currently sell construction equipment in West Palm Beach, Florida. We're the Kubota dealership here. We're the #1 dealership in the country. We have 14 locations in the state of Florida, and I handle all the construction equipment here in West Palm Beach, which is anyone that knows anything about South Florida, all they're doing is building. So
that's right.
Coach, I'm making more money now than I was when I was wrestling, which doesn't say much because I didn't make much money. So
yeah, but
it's been good.
Well, good for you, man. We're so.
And I heard they're gonna put they're gonna have T-shirts on me here with this company. They couldn't do it with WWE.
Maybe we'll make one at our BTT merch store for every guest. We'll make one. Who knows? Pete, be well, brother. Stay in touch. All right. Be good. He is
guys.
The one
I love
and only.
You guys. Thank you so much. Good seeing you.
It's great to see you, man.
Good seeing you. Yep.
He's the one and only Pete Gass of the Mean Street Posse. Remember, we drop stuff every single Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. We'll let you know, of course, when this one drops as well. For Pete, for Tommy, for producer man behind the scenes, I am the coach. We'll see you next time right here on BTT.